Hello, alright, I'm going to show you guys how to do my super cozy wool blanket. And what you're going to need to know for this blanket is you're going to need to know how to do the chain cast on, which I actually go step by step through each process in this video, but your garter stitch, which is actually E-wrap purl combination, your drop stitch, which is right here, and then the single crochet cast off is what I used. And I do different sets just to give it a bit of a different look. So we've got the garter for the brim, then we have your drop stitch with a little bit of a garter in between, and we do a little set of that, and then we go into a set of just straight drop stitches with nothing in between them, just drop stitch to drop stitch. Ooh, sorry about that, got caught on my camera. The loom I use for this is the 138 peg Serenity loom. I believe that's how many pegs are on this. If not, I'll correct it in the video. But this one has actually been dropped and has broke a peg, so that is a peg I've repaired. And we're doing this loom as a flat panel. Now what I mean when I say that is if you look at this loom, you can just go and go and go, and that's why it's called a Serenity loom. It just keeps going and going and going. It's actually, the name is being changed. I can't say too much yet, but when I'm allowed, I will post links all over the video because somebody else has picked up the loom and they're having a few changes done to it, which I'm very, very excited about because it's going to make it a lot better loom. First of all, it's going to be made with a better plastic, which is incredible because that's been the #1 complaint the entire time, is just the material it's been made out of. And they're changing the name to the Infinity Loom. But everything else is going to stay the same. So when this new loom comes out and I let everybody know where you can purchase them at, you can go there, get them. It's going to be Infinity, not Serenity. So this is the loom you use, and we are using it in a flat panel. So you need to mark whichever side you start on, or wherever you decide to start. Mark that peg so you will know. At the end, there's a little tip. If you would accidentally go in a circle, let's say you started here and you went all the way around and this is your first peg, this is your last peg. Let's say you get distracted and you end up going from this peg to this peg and you have a string in between. If you do it once or twice through the blanket, I can show you how to fix that. If you do it and keep doing it though, that's a little harder to fix. So we will need the Serenity loom. Other tools you will need, which mine has dropped. Sorry, just a moment. Okay. You'll need a loom hook, which your loom will come with a loom hook. You will also need a yarn guide. Your loom will come with a yarn guide. They're going to look different than these because I don't have the new looms yet. They're not made at this point. But anyway, so these are two things. The yarn guide, I say, is optional, but I really, really, really urge you to use a yarn guide. And if you're not sure what a yarn guide is, a lot of times I refer to it as a tensioner, and the pattern is actually referred to as a yarn guide. I really encourage you to use one because it will slow down. There'll be less tearing up of your hands just from the constant motion of using it, and also it makes it go a lot faster and it keeps the tension even, which keeps you from breaking pegs. You need a crochet hook, nothing special, just any crochet hook will do. Pair of scissors, always need scissors. You can use regular scissors, you can use, these are what I use, I love these, but you can use whatever type of scissors you want to use. A row counter is optional. That is your choice, any kind of row counter, because you're not really going to be counting any farther than the number 7 in this project. You won't be counting any higher than number 7, but if you need to keep track of it and you just get distracted easily, then grab a row counter. And if you mess up, the stitches on this project are, it'll blend in. So if you accidentally do one extra row here, you don't do enough there, it's fine. Talk a little bit about the yarn I've chosen to use for this, and it is the Loops and Threads Cozy Wool yarn. I'll do a little close-up of the, so you can see it's 90 yards. And it's 50% wool, 50% acrylic, and it feels amazing. The color I use is Thunder Blue, And this is a size 6 yarn, so this is a super bulky yarn. If you decide to go with a different yarn, I would use a size 5 or a size 6. If you use a size 4, I would go with 2 strands of a size 4. But if you like how mine turned out and you want to have the same fabulous feel to yours, then go with the Cozy Wool. That is my #1 choice for this. This is awesome, awesome yarn. And of course, it's actually my first time ever really dealing with wool. And it's always been one of those things I've been nervous about. You hear, oh, it's itchy, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. No. This is fabulous. I love it. Okay. So now we are going to start with your cast on. I will make a note. I am left-handed. Those of you who subscribe to my channel, I know this is a constant repetition from me. But I do make the note because not everybody watches every single video I do ever. So if you need to work this however it is most comfortable to you, because you are going to be using a purl stitch, typically, especially when using a yarn guide, the E-wrap stitch, you can just go either way and it really doesn't matter, because what you'll be doing with your yarn guide is wherever you're starting, you'll just be wrapping. And you can wrap the row in less than like 2 minutes, which when you get into this, that's pretty awesome. Oh my God, plug my camera in. So if you are right-handed and you notice that you have trouble doing the purl stitch going in this direction, then you're going to want to start from whatever peg you use, which do mark it and mark it well. If your loom is already marked up to be used as a rake, use a different collar or something on your first peg and your last peg so that you can tell them apart, because it is a pain in the butt if you accidentally get to your last peg and then go straight to the first instead of going back the opposite direction. But of course, if that happens, it happens. Don't freak out. I will show you how to fix that and you will be a loom knitting god by the time you are done with this. So, like I said, we are doing the chain cast on. For the chain cast on, we want your yarn. Of course, if you're using a yarn guide, put your yarn guide on first. Don't want to miss that step. Yarn guide first. Okay, so we want to make sure this is tightening up the right direction. And for me, I will be going in this direction. That's how I work. So you've got your slip knot. Loop it around your peg. That will be your first peg. And we still got this loop right here. Take this loop, put it behind peg number 2. You're always putting it behind, and then you tighten it. Put it behind peg number 3. Okay, so we have done our chain cast on. We're almost to the other end, which when we get to it, you'll be right by your beginning. Now going on the inside here, it's a little awkward at first, but you will get used to it, and the chain cast on's really the worst part for that. And sometimes when you're going on the inside, alright honey, when you're going on the inside, I hold my finger over the top of the peg so the loops will stay on. And this project, you don't want to do anything super tight, so you can pull that, and you can see I'm pulling where it's not super tight on there, and you don't really want it to be. Alright, we are almost at that last peg. Okay, now see, there is one empty peg, and when you get to your last peg, all you do is just take that loop, put it on that peg. I'll give you a close-up here. These do not connect, and they never connect through the entire project. When you do that, go through, if you can remember at the time, push down all of the loops as you go. But this is your cast, and I'm going to get all these pushed down, and then I'll kind of move it back so you can see a little better. Alright. Yep, if it'll hold up. Alright, so this is your cast on. You have cast on every single peg, but you did stop, and there's a little bit of a space from your beginning peg and your end peg. And now the yarn from that beginning peg, just put it down in between here and just let that go. Alright, so you have cast on. Now we are going to E-wrap. And this is the tensioner I use. This was actually a crown tube. You can go to Walmart. Sometimes you can buy them in like the dollar section. A lot of your craft stores and stuff will carry them too. Crayola does make some, but if you can get the generic, you can usually get a pack of 8 of them for $1. And if you don't have those, you can take a Bic pen apart and use the tube for it. Or just use the tube that comes with your loom. Alright, so for the E-wrap, let me move this just so in case you're unfamiliar with the E-wrap. It's called the E-wrap because it's kind of like a cursive E wrapping around the pegs. So you wrap behind and you go all the way around. I will make a note here. This is something I started doing when I do flat panels that only have one stitch. Like if you're doing a blanket all E-wrap, it will curl every which way it can. But if you look right here, this yarn is coming from this first peg and it's already pointing that way, and that's the way the yarn is wanting to go. So if you work with that and just go the way the yarn is wanting to go, it won't curl as bad. This project right here, there is absolutely zero curl to it. It's I call it a flowing project because the sides of it will have a bit of a wave to them and kind of a little bit of a ripple in it that just really gives it a lot more character, and I love. So we are doing the E-wrap, and see this is going this way, so I'm skipping this peg and I'm just going to wrap this one, and then we wrap. This is a very large project you're going to be working on for a while. Expect this project to take 40 to 50 hours to complete. If you are an avid loom knitter and you're a very, very fast loom knitter, you might be able to get it done in probably around 30 hours. But for the majority of people, it's going to take 40 to 50 hours because you're going to have to get used to doing the stitches, and some of you, this will be the first project you have ever done. Alright, there. I am back to first peg. I'm back to my first peg, which what I do is you just loop around it, and then take your loom hook, take that bottom peg, which it's going to be tight because this is your cast on. Oops. Take that bottom loop and pull it over the top, and that locks it in place. I'll show you a few more times. Let me flip this around this way. Adjust my lighting. Okay, so right here is our cast on row, and this is our E-wrap row. Bottom over the top. You want to push that down. I mean, you don't really have to at this point because your next row is going to be a purl row. I do just from habit, so, but it does go faster if you don't. You're just taking that bottom over the top, and this one is going to be kind of tight, so you want to be careful. That's why I say watch your tension. Have the last couple now from that first E-wrap row, and there we go. Alright, congrats, you just did your cast on in your first row. From here, we are doing, oh, Dexter buddy, you're in my way. I need to get to the end of the blanket. It's in here somewhere, probably right under Dexter. Okay. So you've just done your chain cast on, and you've done your first row, which was an E-wrap row. Now you're going to do a row of purl, a row of E-wrap, which it's all right here, another row of purl, another row of E-wrap, and then you're going to end up with a final row that is purled before we get into the drop stitch, which I'm not going to go row by row, but I'm going to show you how to do the purl stitch now. And do keep in mind the complete written directions with photos and everything for this blanket is in the description below, or if you want to get a copy that you can print out yourself, you can actually go to www.hypnotichysteria.com, go under the pattern section, and there will be a PDF file there that you can actually download and print yourself if you would like, or if you just want to save it to something. Okay, with that said, I'll teach you, I started to say ladies, but men can knit too. I'm going to teach everybody how to purl right now. Right? And remember what I said. The yarn is coming, now the yarn is coming from this peg here. and it's wanting to go this way. It's angled in this direction, wanting to go that way. So I'm not doing anything with this peg. I'm going to the second peg. And how you purl is you take the yarn hook. Actually, I gotta prop this a bit. Dexter, buddy, you gotta move. I'm gonna pull this up and prop it just so I can get a better angle to show you. If the cat will allow it. Maybe he won't. Okay. So, we put the hook down through the top of the loop on the peg. You take your working yarn, hook it, pull it up through the bottom. Now we're going to take everything off that peg. That peg is empty now, and you just got a hoop on the hook. Take that back on there. You just purled. And we're going to go to the second. Take the hook down through the top, working yarn across the peg underneath, grab it, pull it up, lift up on the current loop on the peg. Okay, so we just have a couple more purl stitches to do here, and then your first purl row will be completed. And as you can see, we're at this last spot. Of course, we just purl that last one just like normal. Now you're going to want to go through and push all these down. Now row 2, we're going to E-wrap again, and just like at the first E-wrap row, the yarn is coming from this last peg. Make sure I'm getting enough lighting. The yarn is coming from this last peg, so if you E-wrap it, keep it that way. I actually go and E-wrap the next peg instead, and then just E-wrap the whole thing and take your bottom over the top. So to do the beginning of this, again, you will E-wrap a row, purl a row, E-wrap a row, purl a row, E-wrap a row, and then purl a row. So you're going to have your first 6 rows will be alternating between E-wrap and purl, and then you will get into your drop stitch. I'm going to show you how to do the figure 8 stitch for this blanket. Now, as you can see, I've got a good bit of it done. So what you do for the figure 8 stitch is, and remember, always work, that was my phone, got an email, always work in the way that is comfortable for you, because especially with your E-wraps, most people can do the E-wraps, you know, either way. With your purl stitches, I know with me, I am not ambidextrous at all, so when it comes to doing the purl stitch, I need it to be going a certain way. So that you need to think about before you even start this video. Let me move my lighting down some. Okay, so here we are. Our last peg, remember these are not connected or else this would be a big tube and not a blanket. So we wrap around that last peg, pull up. Again, this is to do the single drop stitch. Then we wrap it again, and we wrap the next peg. Take the bottom over the top. So we wrap, you re-wrap that peg. When we're done, every single peg will have 2 loops on it. And all you do is you wrap 2 pegs, knit off the second, wrap 2 pegs, knit off the second. See? So you re-wrap that one that you just knitted off. We'll slow this down so you can see. Alright. We're almost there. Alright, remember this black peg right here is the last one, because if we keep going, it's going to be a big tube. I know I keep saying that, but it's very, very important. However, you need to mark this so that you know, you mark it so that you don't accidentally do that, because that's a irritating thing to fix. Alright, so there, right now, every single peg except for this last one has 2 loops on it. Now this next part is purling, which it can be done one of two ways. You can go through and take off all of these top ones and purl the rest, but I find it, since this loom is so large, I find it easier to do it at the same time. So this is just wrapped around, see, it's just wrapped around there, and we've pulled that top one off. We're going to purl. See, that's already on there, so we can, that's hooked in, we can take that one off now. And now we are going to purl. And you don't want to do a whole lot of tension, because you don't want to pull out that stitch back there, because that is what drops down and gives you this part right here. See, like those V's? That's what does this. Okay, so I'll do a few more of these and I'll show you how to finish up the row. Yes, I could show you through the entire row, but if I do that, some of these, it can take me, well, doing it on a table like this where I'm holding it a little more awkward than what I'm used to, would probably take me about 20 minutes just to do this one step. Okay, see, and this is a size 6, and I'm showing you mainly the beginning and the end, because I've noticed a lot of videos and patterns, they're not very specific on that very first peg and that very last peg. The rest of this you just do the same. Okay, we're on our last peg here. You take that top stitch off and you purl it. That one's nothing special. So that is your drop stitch row. And when I say like a drop stitch set, what I mean is where you wrap the 2 pegs, take the bottom over the top like I just done, and then casting it off, because you have to take that loop off and then purl it in your next, just start wrapping the next. It's a habit I got started doing years ago because I found that it did help with your products wanting to curl some, because you can't really, let me move this way, you can't really get around the curling without blocking or something like that, or using alternate stitches all the way. And of course we wrap that last peg, and I always like to knit off that last peg first, because that locks that in place. And then from here all we do is we just knit off the E-wrap. I'm going to do this very slow at the beginning, just so those of you who have never purled before can kind of get this down. Now you do got to watch out, because this yarn, it's the cozy wool, but it's actually 2 separate pieces spun together kind of loosely, like you can see, because it's an awesome texture. But you got to watch when you're doing this that you're pulling up both pieces and that your hook isn't getting stuck in just one. And oops, almost there. And our last one. Alright, now at this point, of course, again, you want to push all these down. You have done, that is the completion of your step 1 after your section 1 after your garter stitch cast on. So what you've just done is your garter stitch cast on, your drop stitch, the purl row to lock it in, and your step 2, which is your E-wrap, and then another purl stitch. That creates one set. Now once you get done with those 7, the next part, and the only reason I'm doing sets of 7 is because it's an easy number to remember. I try to get this out so that you can see what the next set look like, because it's still the drop stitches, and there's just a very subtle change in it. So when this blanket is done, there's going to be the texture of the drop stitches letting some of the light come through, which is making it really nice. This is just where I added a new skein, which I'll show you how to do that at the end. And then you're going to have those extra stitches in the middle, which are going to make it a little more plush. And then you're going to have just your regular drop stitch rows, which you'll do 7 of those, 7 of these, and you're just going to rotate it back and forth. Now once you get done with this first set of 7, then for the next part, it's very simple. We're going back to our drop stitch. And it really doesn't matter which way you wrap that, just whichever way you do it. Try to do it the same through the entire thing. So again, you know, we're doing a row of drop stitch. Which I went over it pretty thoroughly before. Almost done with it. See, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I try to put my finger back here and hold that, and that makes it go a lot faster. So again, of course I showed this one the first time, but we were on that last peg. Every single peg on this loom now has the drop stitch loop and the original previous loop on there. So we're on our section 2, and at this point you have, I know I keep going back, but people like references. Okay, you got your garter stitch start with your chain cast on. You got your first 7 sets of, we'll just refer to this as the part 1, with the drop stitch locked in with a purl stitch, then an E-wrap and another row of purl. And it creates that pattern there. And you've done your 7 rows of that. Now we're doing our 7 rows of, and we'll just call it set 2. Now the only difference is we are still doing the drop stitch and we are locking in with a purl stitch, but we are not doing that row of E-wrap and then purl. See, so this is more plush and it's going to stand out more, and this is going to lay a little flatter just to get the blanket even more texture and depth to it. Alright, so like I said, it's our section 2, and we're going to complete this doing it the exact same way, and we are locking these in with the purl stitches all in one step. Right, now we're finishing up that row. Almost there. Now this time, on your previous 7 sets, what you had done is, when this row was done, you did a row of E-wrap, a row of purl, and then you went back into the drop stitch. This time we're not doing that. This time you are going straight into your drop stitch. So you're going to do another row of the drop stitch, just like you've been doing, and you'll be doing 7 sets, which one set of this is just one loop going around with the drop stitch where you have the 2 loops. You have 2 loops left on each peg, and then taking that top loop off and purling the stitch that's on the peg left. That's one set. You're going to do 7 sets of that, and then you will go back and do 7 sets of set 1, then you'll do 7 sets of set 2, and you're going to complete this. You're going to be repeating this pattern until the blanket gets to the desired length, at which point you will be doing another 6 rows of your garter stitch, ending on an E-wrap row, which I'll show in a moment anyway, and then you will be doing your cast off. Your end string might be on this peg, your end string might be on this peg. Your last row before this should have been an E-wrap row, but whatever side you're on, that's fine. Just work it the same way you've been working every single row. So let's take the yarn off that last peg, put it on the hook. Alright. You see that? That last peg is on the hook. Oops. I'm trying to angle this so you can see. Now we're going to take the next peg and put it on the hook. There we go. We take the back over the front, which what we just did is this first peg that was put on there. We just basically slipped it over top of that one, leaving only this one on the peg. At this point, you're going to take the yarn, wrap it around the hook, pull your back over your front. That is your chain 1, hence the name. And then you go to the next peg on there. You take the yarn off it. Alright, we are all the way over to the end. And we're still working. Again, we're taking the loop off the peg, back or the front. Now, one thing you can do, you want this extra, the crochet you do here, the single stitch, you want that really loose. If you have trouble getting it loose, you can do it once. You can actually do a second one. So you do 2 stitches together. Now, you don't want to do that for every single peg all the way around because I'll make the tension too tight, too loose. But if you do the single, if you don't do it loose, it might make the tension too tight. So we're taking the back over the front, looping over, creating a new one. Now we're either going to leave this really loose or wrap over, pull back over the front and make a second. But if you do the stitch really loose, then you will be fine and that's all you'll need to do. But if you notice that you're going through it and you're like, well, that doesn't really have as much stretch as I would like, it will not be noticeable to do a second chain there. Alright, we're on our last couple here. Okay. Alright, when we got our, oops, there we go. Our last peg off the loop. Alright, so after, I don't know, 40, 50 hours of work, you are just now at the end of this blanket. So you've taken that back over the front. Oh, if I can grab my scissors. And you only have 1 peg on there now. And now, take scissors. Cut some string. Pull that string through. That's locked in. It's not going anywhere. Oh, this is one of the most exciting parts. There is your cast off. Alright, so now all you have left to do is weaving in these ends. And for that, oh, I'm sorry, buddy. Cat, sit back there. See? It's my buddy. It's my helper. He likes the wool. Alright. Need a pair of scissors, crochet hook. We got some of these strings. They're going to be all over the blanket because you've just used 15 skeins of wool to make this. So what we do, where our strings are, we don't want them, we want it to blend in and not be noticeable. Which the wool is really good of kind of just after a while naturally just felting itself. Dexter loves it. So where the ends will just really blend in good. But all you do, this is nothing special. Just take your crochet hook, get loops close to it, and just run it through. I'll do a couple more. And you want to run them through just a few, just to lock that in so that it's there and it's not going anywhere. And to make it, it'll blend in better even if you go like from one row to the next. And there you go. When you get it in there as much as you want, just cut it with a little bit extra sticking out. And then you take and you stretch and you stretch. And see, I can't even see where that second end is now. There's a little bit of this one still showing. But see, as this gets stretched and used, that little tiny dot right there, it's all sticking up. But the other side, I can't even see. Okay, sometimes when we are doing our flat panels, it doesn't matter if it's a circular loom, a long loom, or even one of the S-shaped looms. If you are doing a flat panel and accidentally connect it to where you got a tube, here's a string up here, it's not a fun thing to fix, and it will leave, like here's a spot right here I fixed. I didn't cut the ends yet. but you can do it. It is doable. You just got to be very careful when you're doing it so that you don't lose the strings and things start to unravel. And let's see, I've got a spot over here still that I need to fix. But how you do this is you want to take, so this one's still up to the top pretty close. It's only a couple rows down, so I'm able to pull extra yarn. If you can do that, do that. And then take and cut it. This one isn't really worked down far enough to weave it in, so I'll show you down here how to kind of weave this in. And this one was actually 2 stitches. But what you want to do, well, 2 rows that I'd done in a circle. You want to pull that out so you have yarn to work with. Do that with the second one too. And if you do a whole bunch of rows where you've got them connected, if you have the time and the patience, and if you're able to undo the rows, you will be a lot happier with the outcome. Okay, so here's one of the ends that we kind of pulled out a bit. Take it through, and I'm just going to knot it because this is not much yarn. Okay, there we go, we got a knot there. This type, typically I would suggest taking your scissors and cutting it. This yarn right here breaks real easy. And if you're able to pull enough yarn out, you can weave it through a couple stitches, because when you have your ends on the end of the project, it seems to be a lot more noticeable. But see, this is kind of a fuzzy yarn, so that will blend right in. If you're using something like a super bulky weight yarn, something like this, or like a fuzzy yarn, it's really not going to be as noticeable as if you're using a smooth yarn. Okay, so I pulled it through a stitch. I'm just going to take that yarn, pull that through, and then I'm just going to pull that knot down. I always hold below the knot, because sometimes if the knot, with some of your yarn, it wants to slide through, and if your knot's not real strong, it'll just come right undone. So there we go, I got that. Now on this, this is just a scrap piece, but if I worked this all the way to the end and finished it out, there'd be very little, you wouldn't really even notice. See, there's a couple over here on this side that I fixed. I could feel a thicker spot in the yarn, and as you can see, it doesn't stretch out quite as big as that does. So, especially if you are doing the cozy wool blanket, and you get, say, because this is a project that's very big, and you've got 130, I think it's 138 pegs that you're working with. If you accidentally connect the front and the back and you're dealing with that, that's going to be a lot of work to fix, to undo it. So if you just do it once with that project, I would just pull the yarn, cut it like I did up here, and then just weave it in, take a crochet hook and knot it. Alright,